Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Friday's live with Find My Past. I am Myko Clelland, your host for this week, and I will just adjust the light because it seems I'm brighter than the sun. Hopefully, there we go, a little bit nicer. I am here to tell you about this week's new releases here on Findmypast, the only website to release new records every single week, and also to just find out about what you're doing, because that's what this is. It's a place that we can all gather together and learn more about our own family history and, of course, ourselves, because family history is not just the story of our ancestors, it's really the story of us. And so I can see lots of people saying hello. I see lots of people from all over the place. I see there Sherburn in Elmet. Michelle, you'll have to tell me if that's near Barwick in Elmet, because that's where I had some relatives go and live. I have a great uncle who I found in the 1921 census running a drapery at a spot in Leeds, which is now underneath Leeds Student Union. So I will not get a photograph of that, but it's wonderful to find out. I see Janet is just saying that I've just spoken at Dorset Family History Society. Yes, I've just been running from a presentation, which I just finished about 5 minutes ago with the Family History Society. I had one last night, one yesterday afternoon, one the night before, and one the afternoon before that. I've got 15 presentations this week. I've got 2 more tomorrow. Suffolk, if you're from there, and Manchester and Lancashire Family History Society, and many more next week. Slowly, my throat is dissolving. I have various different things. I have throat and chest things. I have strepsils, which are quite cool. I'm not doing marketing. I'm not paid by these people either. I have some kind of throat spray. I'm definitely trying to survive until all of the end of all these presentations. But myself and my colleagues are running around the houses speaking to every society about the 1921 census. It's wonderful. If you get a chance to go and visit us on those talks, then definitely do, because there's lots to learn about that census itself. And there's plenty that we can help you with to try and get the most out of such a wonderful record collection. And that might be why perhaps my voice is maybe a little different from usual. I'm just seeing a tip there. Apple juice and ginger ale. That's been good with sore throats, as is honey. I haven't got those. I will have to get hold of those, William. That's all right. And Daphne's asking if I have a soft focus filter on. I don't, but my camera seems to like to go out of focus and focus on other things. So perhaps it's going blurry from time to time. Either that or I've started drinking early. I'm not sure, but no, I've just got water here. Lime juice as well. I'm liking these recommendations. That maybe should have been the question of the week. Are any of these talks on Zoom? Yes, they are. They're almost all on Zoom, Rachel. You have to contact the societies involved, and they will be able to let you know about the links. Many of them are open for everyone. Some are for society members, but what better excuse than to join a family history society? And then you'll get access to this wonderful talk, and you'll also get access to all their great resources and any other talks as well. I see lots and lots of these great tips for my throat. Sally is saying, and you have to yak a lot of G&T in the evening. It helps. Hot toddy. I'll have to take all these suggestions. Honey, lemon, and fresh ginger. That sounds like a nice one. That's good. I see lots of people. Yes, a lot of people saying hot lemon and honey. Okay, well, that sounds like I'm going to have to go for that. I think I have lemon. I'd be very poor Sicilian if I didn't have lemon in the house. And honey, I will have to acquire, but I will get hold of that this evening. So that's good. I think Graham, a good choice. Single malt for throat. Well, it was Burns night this week, wasn't it? So I definitely did that. My grandfather's very known for his wonderful toast to the haggis. I can't hope to match his skill at that particular poem, but I do like a Burns poem. And there's a Burns statue that's only just been replaced in Edinburgh, just next to where I live. And that was 10 o'clock on Burns Day morning. And I was very, very excited to go and see that in its pride of place where it should be, ready for that important day. I see a good King Campari would be a good one. I will never say no to having that. So I think this is a great thing. It should have really been the question of the week. I see lots of people from different places. I see cloudy Wolverhampton. That is great because I have, again, relatives in Wolverhampton, Anita, Lincolnshire Family History Society. So they had a presentation with my colleague, Mary McKee, and I hear that went down really well. So that's good. I've not heard of Newfoundland Screech, John, but I'll have to look out for that as well. And William likes veggie haggis. He got some more on his after delivery. That's good. It's good to keep that. Haggis is one of those things where I think the more you know about how it's made, it sounds very terrible, but it's actually quite tasty. And that might be my Scottish roots coming through, and maybe everyone else thinks it's awful, but I really like it. I think it's quite nice. It's very rich, so I wouldn't have it every day, but it is a nice tasty addition to a meal. So I'm certainly happy when Burns comes around. It's excited. Janet's saying Hertfordshire Family History Society tomorrow. I don't think that's me. I think that might be my colleague. I'm not sure which one, but it's you're always in for a treat with one of these presentations. So certainly going to be the one. Flo has mentioned that there's a Burns in Oregon named after the poet. Well, that's good. I'm glad he's getting around, although he definitely got around in his day as well, if you know what I mean. And there are many, many stories and poems and everything else about those kind of things. And Kath has mentioned she loves haggis as well. Anne also loves haggis. Sue loves haggis with a single malt. Oh, what a dangerous statement to say, Andrew. Lancashire Haggis Company make really good ones. Oh, it's south of the border. I'm not sure if it would be allowed. I'm sure it's lovely though. And there's lots of that. We do have, Rosie asks, anyone from Findmypast watching the comments? There is Jessie in the comments. She is here as well, helping us out. And we have some other great comments as well about haggis as well. We've gone through there. Karen's not a great fan. I said it is an acquired taste perhaps, but I'm loving how we've already derailed the conversation. It might be my delirium through all of the lack of sleep from all these presentations, but most enjoyably it is with you. And that's what I enjoy, because we take things in all kinds of different directions and it's always fun. But first, let's talk about the reason you're all here, I'm sure, and that is new records. We have new records this week, as usual, and of course, we're still riding the high of the 1921 census, which was earlier this week. Does it feel like this week? I don't know. For me, it feels like it was yesterday and also a long time ago at the same time. I hope you've made some great use of it. But we have released 2.1 million Berkshire baptisms, burials, marriages, and banns. Parish records, the lifeblood of family history. We're not barking mad, but we're certainly Berkshire mad. And we have nearly 1 million Berkshire baptisms, nearly 400 years of history there. Berkshire burials as well, an incredible set of collection there, and marriages and banns covering 453 years there. Particularly largest of which group is in Reading. I have some family that did move to Reading, so I will have to look that out myself. I think they were the Burts, B-U-R-T, and they were one of the men there was a very, very famous painter for a little while. I'm determined to find a portrait of him, but some of your ancestors may have been painted by him. He ran around doing portraits of people. So if you find an Albin Burt portrait, then that's a distant cousin of mine, and I certainly hope one day I will be able to own one of his paintings, or perhaps a painting of himself. And Berkshire, of course, has Windsor Castle. We've got some wonderful things about that in this collection. And then, as well as those baptisms, marriages, burials, we have the traditional addition of newspapers. We have updated 24 titles this week. And now I will take a deep breath, I will take a sip of water, and I will begin the list of titles. Here we go. We have the Bury Free Press from 1990, a modern one. The County Tipperary Independent and Tipperary Free Press, 1897 to 1907. The Deal, Walmer and Sandwich Mercury, 1865 to 1920. Dis Express, not This Express, Dis Express, 1971 to 1994. The Hammersmith Advertiser of 1861. The Haverhill Echo, or Haverhill Echo, depending. I'm not from there, I'm not sure. Please tell me. 1976 to 1990. The Hull Daily News. 1875, the Irish Emerald, 1877 to 1880, the Kentish Independent, 1919 to 1922, the Langport and Somerton Herald, 1856, the Leek Times, 1891, the Liverpool Daily Post, 1919 to 1920, the Liverpool Journal of Commerce, 1886 to 1889. The Lynn Advertiser, 1963 to 1999. The Macclesfield Courier and Herald, the Congleton Gazette, Stockport Express, and Cheshire General Advertiser, 1837 to 1861. The New Milton Advertiser, not the old one, 1970 to 1998. On the March, 1914 to 1921. Railway News, 1879. The Spalding Guardian, 1990. The Suffolk and Essex Free Press of 1990. The Surrey and Middlesex Standard, 1840. The Town and the County, Town and Country Advertiser, even bigger, 1836. Witness of Belfast, 1880 to 1941. Massive edition there for your Northern Irish relatives. And the Wolverton Express, 1960 to 1962. Anyone got any great relatives from any of these areas? Anyone really excited about finding relatives in these new newspapers? Let us know. That will be a great thing to find out. Obviously, don't rush there just now. They're there forever. Now they're up, so you can go back whenever you like. And don't forget also that weekly reminder that all of your ancestors' stories might not be in the local paper. They might be syndicated. They'll be also in other papers around the country. So even if your ancestors' local paper is not in this week's edition, don't worry, they still might be included in the stories. So make sure to take a search. These are the same newspapers on British Newspaper Archive and Findmypast. If you have a full pro top-level subscription, you have access to the newspapers included in your glorious subscription to Findmypast. If you have a subscription to British Newspaper Archive, you can also use these newspapers, and they are wonderful. They're full of so many stories, so many exciting things. Isn't it great? I love a good newspaper. So there we go. And Sue has made a good point that the Berkshire borders moved around a lot, and that's one thing that I need to maybe do a bit more research. Sally's saying that Sally's family were Berkshirites, but then found themselves in Oxfordshire when the boundaries changed in 1974. The boundaries that we're looking at, these are older records, so I believe they will be the historic boundaries, but keep me honest if anyone has a look and let me know. It's one of those things where maybe my barks will be worse than my bite. And you see, you pay for the whole seat here. You only need the edge. That's Friday's Live. Enjoy. Oh, you get the presenters you deserve. Certainly, this is going downhill. And there's no Ellie to stop me. Oh, I'm sure she'll look in. But at the moment, this is going to be a wild ride. Strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad Tommy likes the newspapers. Lots of other little bits of detail. Williams, one side of the family were in Leek, hosted Tolkien and his family in their hotel. That's fantastic to hear. Really interesting to see. And then a lot of other people coming from different places. I see we've got you tuning in there from Saumur in France. It's very interesting. And that Karen is saying, so it begins. And it does. It does. Well, it never ends, Karen. It never ends. Family history is one of the gifts that keeps on giving. And what a wonderful gift to have. It is something that we continually find new and wonderful things. Even when there are no new records from our particular area, just keep digging, keep looking, and there may be something great to find. And I'm sure none of you have exhausted the 1921 census yet. And as we've been talking about new records and talking about all of these new things, I wanted to go backwards and look at old things, and old things in the sense of how long we've been doing family history and how we got into it. Everyone must have a moment where they thought, I like this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do more. And I want to know what they were. That's the question of the week. So the question of the week is, of course, how did you get started in family history? What sparked your interest in it? And hopefully we've got some great stories coming through. I think I should probably start and just have a think at how I started family history. I remember my grandmother, and it's another a reminder, great thing. My grandparents had their anniversary this week. I may have mentioned last year my wonderful grandparents' anniversary. They have a wonderful romance story, a love story. It was their 71st anniversary this week. So I was very, very happy to wish them happy anniversary. And I do love them very dearly. And I think it was my grandparents who really sparked my interest when I was a boy in family history, and told me all of these wonderful stories about the old country and about all the different things that they had growing up. My grandmother had an incredibly inspiring story She spent 4 years of her life in a camp during the Second World War, had her head shaved, and really didn't have a childhood at all. And she was sprung out at the end of the war. And they walked all the way home from Milan, all the way back down to Sicily. And her mother, during that time, was so exhausted and exerted by that she died as a result of the exertion. And then my grandmother was 12 years old and had to raise a whole family on her own. It was an incredible story. She met my grandfather when they were in Libya, in North Africa, which is where my family were living. And my grandfather was a British soldier there in the occupation. And he used to go into the laundrette and he used to pretend that he had laundry there so he could get a chance to talk to her. And he slowly decided that she was going to be his husband, and the other way around, she was going to be his wife. And then this romance began. And 71 years later, they are still going. And all of these trials and tribulations that he was asked to undertake, because my family were not keen on anyone British at all at the time. I think their opinions have mellowed somewhat now, only slightly, that he did whilst whistling and smiling because he was in love, and that's what matters. If you have love and romance and a beautiful person by your side, you can conquer the world, or even better, you can make a great family. And whatever form that family takes, that's what family history is about. All of those stories passed down, and that's what inspired me and excited me, hearing those stories and just being amazed and inspired and excited and wanting to find out more. And when I got old enough, I think it was probably to keep me quiet. It was maybe around about 11 or so. I was dropped off at the library, and I could go through little microfilms and different things and just learn about the past and the olden days. And that was it. And yeah, it didn't really shut me up, because it made me just talk about nothing but that. So it sort of backfired, I think. But that was how it started. And this is how it's going. So, this is where we end up. But certainly a big tale for me. And I'm very happy now that I'm sure you've all got equally exciting and wonderful stories too. So let's go through here. I see, I'll start with question of the week. If you do answer this, it's a quick way of me finding things as well. If you start your comment with the QOTW, it's easier to spot, and that helps it. Try and get through them all anyway. We have a whole hour, so we've got about 40 minutes left, but it does help to spot. So we see Beth has said her maternal grandfather's cousin worked on the family tree for many years. What sparked my interest was seeing the updates. Started doing research at 16 years old, on and off for a few years. Got back into family history seriously about 5 or 6 years ago and haven't looked back. One of the wonderful things about family history is that there are times perhaps when you've got something else to do. You've got things that are on your mind or anything else, and the family history is still there waiting for you. It doesn't really change the fact that you put all this work in. It's still there, and that's a good thing, because it means that perhaps maybe you've got something on. Don't worry about it. You can come back to family history, and it's going to be here, and you can pick it up and you can carry on. It's great sometimes, in the winter when things get colder. You've got a nice indoor hobby, something to do. And when it gets a bit warmer, if you're a real obsessive like me, you can then start heading to cemeteries and all kinds of things, and then adding those to your family tree. So there's plenty of things to be doing. But certainly your family tree and everything is all still waiting for you. So that's quite an important one there. We see there, William said he got into this either from watching Time Team and all the old history programs, which I think a lot of people into family history are also very into history, or listening to stories from his grandparents and great-grandparents too when he was younger. The interest started when he was about 11 as well. So we're kindred spirits there. That's it. And it's really interesting. I see Ellen saying she's been telling a newly found first cousin on our family history. He never knew how deep our American roots were. Well, that's exciting to tell them. It's good. Your sense of identity is a really important thing. Whatever you identify as and everything is a really a good thing to then hold close and to learn more about, and because that is you. And so it's an interesting, important thing. Shana saw Anton Deck's program. I remember that one as well. She said she'd been addicted ever since. A lot of people have started on things like that. Who do you think you are? And other things like that as well. They watch that and say, oh, I wonder what my ancestors were doing. I think a lot of historical programs can spark that. You see a program, maybe The Tudors. That's one series I watched a while ago. I never finished it. I should go back to that. But I wonder, what were my ancestors doing in the Tudor period? I mean, most of the time they weren't here, but still, it's interesting to think, well, what would my ancestors have thought about this kind of thing, or what would they have done? If you remember that TV show Gunpowder, I think it was called Gunpowder, with Kit Harington, That was a few years ago. And that was always exciting because the person that Kit Harington played, and this is a genealogist's wonderful phrase and a great reason for a genealogist to watch this, was his own ancestor. So he played his own direct ancestor, Robert Catesby. And that must be strange. It must be an interesting thing to say words that were approximations of what your ancestor said, and try and get yourself into the mindset of your own ancestor and do that in front of millions of people. That must be a big thing. So that is a really interesting thing to find. I see certainly... then I don't know if there's any other instances of that. If you do know of a television show like that, then tell me, because I'd love to see how it changes, perhaps someone acts or anything like that. What else do we have? Here we go. Cheryl has said a first cousin who was born and lives in Canada brought her a disc with the beginnings of their family tree. Didn't even know what a GEDCOM was. I think you're among friends with that. These terms that we use all the time, like GEDCOM, like BMD, Census, all these things that we use like it's nothing. And it's a whole new language that we've sort of learned between ourselves, and it can be a little daunting when someone comes in straight away. I try really hard to avoid using some of these terms until I can explain what they are, until I know someone knows what they are, because it is a big thing. But you get into it so quickly, don't you? You really pick up these things, and certainly once you've got them in your mind, they don't really leave. What other ones have we got? Oh, Sally said the need to know. That's why she started Family History. She had an elderly aunt, and she used to tell me all kinds of stories when she was a child. I was fascinated that she was older than a local church, and as a child, I thought was really old. It's brilliant, isn't it? When you're a child and your vision of the world is very, very black and white, and there's no nuance, there's nothing else. And so, yes, people are just very, very old or your age, and that's kind of it. And I see Carol started 60 years ago, age 15. Well done. I'm glad you're still going. Her aunt asked, I asked a question, and on it went from there. You must have seen a lot of changes to family history. There are certainly, those of us who've been working in archives and libraries and then moving to digital, and it's a different world, isn't it? And I think everyone should experience both sides. If you've only researched on a computer, then certainly definitely go back and try, have a go. Make sure you're looking at an archive with your ancestors' records in and things, but have a look at their catalogue and see what's there, and try to maybe look at some paper records as well. And it will give you a sense of appreciation for the digital stuff, but it will also possibly give you information that isn't yet digitized. So it's worthwhile learning about doing both of those things, because they can both help you, and using them both in combination can really, really help you to get a bit further. We've got here Graham's family history began just a few years ago. They watched Air Hunters and Who Do You Think You Are? Yes, so many stories have been sparked with that. I wonder, is it something in Who Do You Think You Are that you had your eyes caught with, or was it just perhaps the program itself? Because sometimes if it's something that maybe ties in with your family, maybe that's a little bit more useful and more kind of inspiring to you. I remember Brian Blessed's episode. I think that was my favorite. I don't know what your favorite episodes have been, but I think Brian Blessed's was fantastic. He just had a way about him, and it really, I found myself in tears at the end of that. I think it was really good. A sort of happy ending, I guess, to that story. And I won't spoil it, but it's always good to see records in action and to see everything going on. Kath's father would always said that she would get nowhere with their tree, as his grandfather was illegitimate, and she has discovered lots, skeletons included. Wish he was still here so I could tell him what I found. Well, that's a very exciting thing, to find new things. And it's good though that you've found the stories and the answers. And one thing that's important is we're really kind of the custodians of this family history. It's not really ours. We're just looking after it for the next generation, and hopefully they'll pick it up and they'll carry on running with it and keep making it bigger and better when more records are online and more things have happened. And who would have thought 10 or 20 years ago that we'd be using DNA to find these illegitimate people and to find actually who they were and to tell the accurate story and do different things? And things will continue along those lines, I'm sure, and there'll be so many new developments and new great things that are going to drive family history forward. So what a time to be a family historian, and how exciting some of the things that are coming. And the 1921 census is a great example. What a big new record set that's broken down so many brick walls that have been around for a century. And that's great. And who knows what the next big collection is going to be that's going to do exactly that again. So keep watching. And of course, every week there are new records here. So it's another great reason to come back to see us on the Friday, myself and my colleagues. And then, of course, to have a Findmypast subscription so that you can have access to all these wonderful things as well. Let's see what other questions you've got. Nicole had an interest started when her late grandfather wanted to know who his grandparents were, as his dad was given to a family friend to be raised when his grandmother died. Thankfully, before he passed away, I found his grandparents. Oh, very well done. Discovered my great-granddad had 2 full brothers and 2 half-sisters we knew nothing about. It is wonderful. It's amazing to see that, and I am incredibly happy when those things happen. My grandmother separated really from her Italian and Sicilian family when they moved to Britain, and I was very, very excited to reunite her with her American cousins, and it was wonderful to have them go over. They stayed for a whole month in New Jersey with her first cousin and their family and all of these descendants that were there, and they had a wonderful time. It's one of the greatest memories that I think that they could have, and I'm really happy to have played a part in that. It was really exciting and really, really inspiring, and yeah, very, very happy indeed. So we've got Julie said talking to her grandmother and her father is the way I got started on family history. A lot of people talking to their their forebears, their parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts. If you have any relatives that are with you that you can ask questions of the past, then ask them. But not only that, record them. Get yourself your phone out. Any handheld phone you've got nowadays, any smartphone will have a recorder on it, and just record them saying these things in their own words. Obviously, ask their permission first. But what better thing in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years' time than to hear not only how someone saw the world, but how they saw the world as spoken in their own accent, their own voice, their own story. That's how I've got my grandmother telling the story about all these different things, about the camp she was in, about the rigorous things she had to do, the hours and hours of marching, the fact that they threw her toys away, and all this thing, she had nothing, and the uniform they gave her, and all this stuff I learned, and I have it in her own words, and it's really inspiring, and it brings a tear to my eye when I hear it, and it's just wonderful. It's fantastic. I also found only after the launch of the 1921 census, my relative was one of the bright young things that we have mentioned before, Sunday Wilshin. She's a wonderful starlet of the 1920s. She's my third cousin. And I found, using the information on the 1921 census, a recording with BBC where they interviewed her about her life, and they asked her about those wonderful parties of the bright young things that you've probably read about. And they said, are they as raucous and wild as people say they were? And she said, oh yes, but no more than 2 people died. And that now sums up her for me. That's exactly probably what I expected she might say, but it really gives me an idea that I definitely wish that I met her while she was alive, because she seems like an incredible person. I'm really, really excited to be related to her and to find out more about the things she got up to. The story does go on about how they got 2 policemen who told them to turn the party off drunk, and then when they fell asleep, put flowers on them as if they were dead on the ground, and thought that was hilarious. But yes, it seemed like quite a party, and that was the last party ever of the Bright Young Thing. So really interesting. We've got here, Ellen said it was her mother's fault she got into family history. She said she was Irish. I've heard that before. I started out to find out Irish roots. Turns out her maternal side was Irish and Welsh. Her parental side is a deep tour of American history. Oh, that's good. It's great to see where your ancestors were and what they were doing at really pivotal moments in history. Sarah's grand aunt compiled a family tree going back to the late 1700s and had comments besides some names, such as Fenian, Rake, Fall from Horse, and Shot by Wife. I think your interest was piqued. My interest is piqued. Oh, there's got to be some stories in there. They're going to be really, really exciting. Janet started family history when trying to prove some ancestors were models for students at an art school in their village, started by Hubert Herkimer, I hope I pronounced that right, who used my great-great-grandmother as a model in an oil painting called Hard Times. Painting is at the Manchester Art Gallery, and I've seen it several times. That is really interesting. I know that when we mentioned this Albin Roberts, this painter that's a cousin of mine, it seems also just close, maybe a generation away. I might be related to Emma Hamilton of the same area of North Wales, and certainly connected. According to the will, she's a cousin, but I haven't found any records to prove it. And she had a lot of photographs, a lot of paintings painted of her, and I would quite like. I'm at that point. And this is something I mentioned to a genealogist I was talking to only last week. We had a bit of a relaxing chat. And I don't know if any of you have this, and I'm really jealous because I haven't, an oil painting. It doesn't have to be an original, but a painting of an ancestor, a proper oil painting of an ancestor. And they make me so incredibly jealous. Haven't got one myself yet, but I'm looking for one. I'm hopeful. I'd like an oil painting, and I'm sure some of you do. And you can have to make me jealous in the comments and tell me, because I really do like that. And let's see what we've got here. Louise's granddad wrote his memoir. I was curious about his aunts and uncles who were mentioned briefly. I started to look up their births on Scotland's people. Over 20 years later, I'm still hooked. Yes, it does catch you and keep you. My great uncle wrote a memoir and didn't tell anyone about it. They only found it after he died. It was really interesting because he even had photographs that we'd never seen before either. I found a photograph there with that of my great grandfather in his uniform, and a World War I Italian uniform. I think they look fantastic. They're very, very straight lined. They're very plain, but they look all kinds of formal at the same time. They're really nice to look at. And he's there sitting on a chair, looking exactly how you'd imagine a Sicilian ancestor of mine to look, with his legs crossed and his hands sort of like this. It is fantastic to look at. And if it were better quality, I wonder if I can improve it somehow, then I would love to frame that on my wall. And I wonder if maybe I can turn the camera around and do show you my wall. I'm good. We might manage this. Let's see what happens. So forgive me for a second. I'm going to show you something special to show you my inspiration about family history in a virtual way. Here we go. Let's see what happens. I'm going to turn the camera. I'm going to go here. So if you can see there, the photograph on the top is my great-great-grandfather, the Sicilian fisherman who started the whole thing, the progenitor of so many, I think over about 500 descendants now, of which I'm in touch with so many of them because Sicilians never seem to leave contact. And then there's my grandparents' wedding photo from 27th of January, 1951. There, the day they were married, him in his Cameron Highlanders uniform and her in her wedding dress, disowned by the family, but still together 71 years later. And that's the one that really inspires me and lets me know, of course, where I came from and who I am. Then we have, again, further up there, that's a lamp. We don't want that. I'm very bad on my left and right. In the back, you can see my great-grandmother, Jemima, who's from my Scottish side as well, again, looking over me and making sure that I pay great respect to my roots. And so certainly I try to honor them as much as possible. And there we go. I see so many people having very similar stories, how they got started. I see there so many coming through. I see Beth is saying genealogy terms, BMD, hatch, match, and dispatch. I think that's, I think I'd be a little scared if I use dispatch as a term for some individuals, particularly the more recent ones, but that's a good one. I like that one. Eileen's great aunt had great stories he didn't listen to enough. Now I have to investigate them further. That is a big one. Certainly when you get part of a story, you need to dig and dig and dig. And when there's no one to ask, you have to look at records, and that gets very, very difficult. But certainly there's more stories to be told, and you never get telling when something might appear. So a good question from William. Do I know if overseas territories did 1921 census as well? Will be interesting to see if Hong Kong did one. Want to see more Hong Kong records if available. Well, each territory was very different. They have their own different rules. Australia, for example, they made censuses after the early censuses, which were more of a ringing a bell and counting people in the town square and things like that. And if you didn't come, you didn't get enumerated. They destroyed their censuses after they were taken. They only keep the statistics. India, similarly, they destroyed censuses and just kept the statistics. There are lots of things like that we won't get to use because of this. So you'll have to really get used to the particular local area. I don't quite know too much about Hong Kong records, so they may well have had something like a census, but you'll have to look at the dates and see what's around. Perhaps they have their own archive that might cover these kind of areas and these things. But don't forget, if your ancestor was serving in the military in 1921, they were overseas, anywhere but Scotland, because that's in the Scottish census, they will still be in the 1921 census of England and Wales. You will find, and we use the example in these talks of a group of soldiers in Malta. Maybe if they're in Germany, maybe if they're in the Far East, maybe they're somewhere else, they might still be enumerated in the census. So don't give up and do check there as well. Roxanne, good to see you again. I was always asking about where we came from as a kid and learning history. Watching TV shows always made me wonder how my ancestors fit into it all. I didn't get addicted to the research until about 3 years ago. It's interesting how the spark starts earlier on and we get deeper and deeper as we go in. There's plenty more to learn and plenty more going on. And it is one of those things that we do sort of slip a little bit more each time and keep going until there's no getting us out. We are trapped, but we're enjoying it at the same time. We enjoy it a lot. Moira's grandmother fired her enthusiasm for family history, telling her all about this one and that one and all before my 10th birthday. She died when I was 10 years old. Sorry to hear that. I have found so much, verified what she told me, and found lots more. I've been to Tyne and Wear archives, Durham records, Northumberland archives, and Cumbria archives. I love family history research. That's brilliant. That's good. Nice to see you're seeing archives as well. Lots more things here. And we've got lots. Elsa has a picture of an ancestor mentioned in a family will. I'm tracking down the descendants in the hope the picture still exists. Not looking promising. Or hopefully it's in some dusty library or something. It's just still there. I was asked when I lived in Dundee that there was someone's relative, someone's ancestor was in the McManus Museum just opposite the Findmypast office, and I was asked to go and take a photograph of that oil painting and give it to them, and I did. But I was incredibly jealous again of the fact that they had a wonderful, beautiful oil painting, and again I haven't yet got one, so I'm still looking, still hopeful. Nothing. Eileen would love an oil painting. Given my family and the circumstances, that's not going to happen. That said, I do have some early 1900 hand-coloured photographs. That is interesting. My spare bedroom is full of the very early hand-coloured photos. Well, hand-coloured, they use a very different technique to create them, but early coloured photographs of Venice. And they are really, really interesting to see the colour, because it's always so bright and vivid, isn't it? So interesting. June is writing her memoir. She did one called Words of Wisdom. She's writing stories about her ancestors as well. I see Jessie remembers going to Tyne and Wear archives years ago herself when her aunt was doing their family tree. Hasn't been back since. Maybe worth the visit next time she's back home. Always worth the visit. Always a thing. And there we go. I'm seeing people saying they saw the photos. That's good. It was a strange way for me to curl the camera. So there we go. And Debbie's saying, thanks for the inspiration for a photo wall. Well, certainly, I hope, anyone can do that. What I did was I used a website that would let me print the photographs. I would send them the images and they would just print them and they would send them to my house. So I did that. I'm sure there are lots, so I won't give you one in particular that can do that. And it wasn't that expensive. It was maybe £1 or so, because I haven't got a printer that would do it properly. And once I had those, I got a frame. I got frames, but I also got frames with the little mounting boards in. And I put them all on mounting and I put the frames up. And it's really nice to have that little bit of inspiration for family history just around you. So that's a big thing as well. And Roxanne is looking forward to getting a space set up where she can surround herself with the photos and books of her ancestors. Books as well. Oh, I'm jealous as well. That's one thing. Karen's got lots of photos that her dad found. Didn't realize he had them amongst a lot of paperwork in a file in the cupboard. One thing to remind everyone, if you have photographs like that, name them, put on the back in pencil, write on who is in the photograph and which one is which, because you can bet someone somewhere will have a photograph of someone and you don't know who they are. I have perhaps a photo of my great-great-grandmother. I can't tell. I don't know. She's just a woman in a pony cart, and I've no idea. And I wish I knew. She looks maybe a little bit like she could be, but she could be a sibling. She could be anyone. She could be a complete stranger. I can't add it to my family tree. I've possibly lost the chance. And so it's really, really painful. Make sure you don't add to that. Make sure you've added names on the back if you know who they are, because if something happens, then maybe those names will be lost. And that's a terrible problem that we've got to watch out for. And we see there, Elsa said, Emma Hamilton in the will. Is that the same will had a bunch of you looking for at 2 a.m.? Yes, it is, Elsa. That was a fun evening. Yes, that was the Roots Tech event that happens every year. We had a little bit of a gathering after that, and we did some live family history, and it was relating to that. That's how Albin Roberts Burt came up, the painting, the portrait painter, and Emma Hamilton is involved around there as well, and that was it. So it was that leg up, that group of genealogists. I don't know, I think we mentioned a long time ago what a group of genealogists would be, but certainly many cooks actually made a better broth, as it pushed me a little bit further, and it was great to hear other people's opinions and thoughts. Maybe we should have to do something like that here on Findmypast Live as well. Valerie said archives and libraries are not dusty. For the most part, you're right. I think particularly many in Britain and Ireland are very well kept. I have been to some, let's say, more underloved archives as well. So I think it depends. Hopefully you're with some wonderful archives with people who take great care of their records, but then there are definitely some on a sliding scale. And so I would be, I would say that, yes, they can't all be tarred with the same brush, but there are certainly some dusty ones as well. And let's see. Gina has asked, can you buy credits from the 1921 census, or do you have to pay for each search individually? It's free to search, but when you want to look at a transcript or an image, you just buy that transcript or image. So you just get that straight away just as a one-off payment. So definitely, as it's free to search, keep looking until you're sure you found the one that you want to look at. You can hover over the transcript button, and that will show you lists of the people in that same household. So you're definitely sure. And then you can either look straight at the image, which I like to do, or you can look at the transcript, or you can even look at both. They're separate, so you don't need them both. It's up to you. And then you can use that to go a bit further on your family history. And there we go. So June said, we lost most of our family photos in a house. Luckily, when connected with DNA matches, they had photos of my great-grandmother and her family. So June, I'm very similar. Those photographs have all come from other family members, apart from the one at my grandparents' wedding. And so really, that's one of the reasons why you should connect to your ancestors and modern cousins, because that is possibly the chance for you to find the details about your closer relatives. They might have a photograph that they don't really care about. It's their, sometimes aunt or something like that, but they have it, and it's your great grandmother, and you think, wow, what an amazing thing. I wish I could see that. And that's the sort of thing that you can find when you connect to ancestors, start talking to them. There are so many to find. So definitely, certainly a really good thing to keep following through. Elsa saying a group of genealogists is called enthusiasm. We certainly are. That's it. And Karen's made a good point. The hive mind of the genealogist community is wonderful. Jackie's added, make sure you name each person by name and not your relationship. Mum, Nan, and me will not mean anything in years to come. Very good point, Jackie. I definitely agree with that. And Anne has just received photos of her great-grandparents and grandfather. Very excited to see them. That sounds like a great one, Anne, especially if you've not got any photographs of them. What an exciting thing to find. And Samantha has photos, but no idea who most are. My heart goes out to you there, Samantha. It's one of those terrible things. Keep them, though, and maybe you'll find another photograph in a later point that you can then see who that person is, and you might recognize them in the photograph. So never get rid. Always keep hold of them. Roxanne's got a childhood Bible that belonged to her 3 or 4 times great-grandmother. Did the math and realized it's 196 years old. Wow. Also have a copy of a New Jersey law book by my 2 times great-grandfather. That is great. Keep hold of those. Keep them very secure. Also scan them as well. It's a good point that Karen has mentioned. They've scanned all their old pictures. Do that too. Make sure that you have that, and then you can use it digitally, and you've also got the original. Keep the original too. And Audrey has made a point, an important point, that her archives are not dusty, the National Archives. The repository is extremely clean. I agree completely. The National Archives is certainly not one of the dusty ones I was referring to. I won't name them by name. And I would say that the ones I'm thinking of aren't in this country or in America or anywhere you may be tuning in from. And the contents of some of the boxes, on the other hand, maybe. That's also possibly true. And another good point from Cindy, we started a Facebook family group and they uploaded so many photos. That's one way of connecting to people. That's definitely a good recommendation. We can get all these people together, share stories, get them excited. They might get involved, and they might maybe then give you some more information, things that you might not know, things that might help. And yes, as it, Valerie, you're mentioning this dusty thing about the archives bristle of being called archivists bristle being called dusty so often. Yes, I said the ones that I use in day to day aren't. That's to be fair. Dust is an enemy of preservation of permanently valuable items. I think it's a good point that perhaps it shows in the value that we place on family history and on history, that the dusty archives that I think of when I think of that are in countries that don't really fund their archives very much, and it impresses upon people the importance of well-funding your archives and libraries, because they are the ones that will preserve this history. And if you can put things in a temperature-controlled, wonderfully safe space like the National Archives or like a lot of regional archives around the country, anything like that, then you know that those records are still going to be there when you come to look at them. Whereas other ones, where you just put them in a cupboard, which is underneath a water pipe, which could go at any point, or anything like that, which I have seen before. And again, I won't name names. That's when you start to get nervous, and that's when you see things that are just books that are covered in dust and all kinds of things. And those places, I bristle at the fear of losing such important records. And Debbie said, I have some photographs of my maternal grandmother that are tiny and a bit blurry. Should they be scanned? Yes, you can do a lot with digital enhancement and all kinds of things. There are lots of tools and lots of things that you can do to maybe get some more out of the photographs. They might be blurry, but you might be able to do something. And certainly never throw them away and do keep them. They are useful. So it's really a big thing that you can have that. Actually, Beth is still scanning and digitizing her family photos and documents, doing them by the album. And Karen has a family photo wall. It's there as soon as you walk through the door. She had lots of questions about the photos from visitors. She's very proud, and you should be. That's a really good one. Fee is mentioning to Audrey that your archives are fantastic. The National Archives are fantastic. Fee loves being there. I love being there. It is great. And Ivy said through a Facebook group, they now have a group photo of their grandfather with his regiment in World War II. That is really exciting. That is a good one to have. And we see some more there. Lost all of the family photos in the first 6 years of family history research in a house fire. It's a terrible thing to hear, but don't forget that many of these photographs were made in multiple copies, and those copies might still be with other relatives. So certainly don't give up hope. Keep looking. And there we go. So we've got some more details here. Oh, Karen's asked a good question. Anyone have a good method of unwinding long school photographs? I don't have an answer for that. I wonder if someone else does. And a good point, Andrew said, even if blurry, they're still probably the best you have. It's better to have a blurry photo than no photo. It's a really good thing. William has asked a good answer to that there. If they're rolled up, these long school photos, what about archival roll weights? That's a good point. If you're taking a photograph or you're doing a kind of scan of anything, then yes, something to weigh it down in the corners just so you can get a flat thing. That'll be really helpful and useful. Sylvia's sister digitized all their family photos from childhood after they died and shared them amongst them. So that is good. So that's a good way to make sure that they stay. And Roxanne is adding metadata to her photographs, which is also important. When you scan them, you can add extra detail. That can help. So you can catalog it like an archivist, the exciting way that you should, because then you get all the extra details. You can search in different ways as well. Just like a Findmypast record set, you can just start typing, start looking. And that's why metadata is really important. I'm a bit of a stickler for metadata. So certainly you can do that. And I really recommend you add that as well. Janet has lots of photo slides, contemplating getting a slide scanner to get copies. That's her aim for this year. It's a good one. I think there are some services that do it for you, and it may be cheaper to get the scanner. I'm not sure, but however it works, you'll definitely get them off those, because then you've got another copy and then they're safe, aren't they? Especially if you keep them in a number of different places. Keep one on your computer, keep one on some kind of extractable device like a USB stick or a portable hard drive, and keep another copy elsewhere, not on the property somehow. Samantha has found negatives and has seen an app that can help you see it, but she hasn't tried it yet. I think there are a few things like that. One thing I've found which is free is the Google Photo app, which lets you take photographs of pictures, and it works like a scanner. And so you can hold your phone up and you can take photos of each corner with the torch on, and it will reconstruct like a scanned photograph. When I went to see my family in New Jersey, we had a bit of a family reunion. They put lots of family photos around on the tables to enjoy, and I saw lots of pictures I'd never seen before. So I got my camera out and I did that over and over just to make sure that I had them. And I still have them now on my phone. I really should put them onto my computer because it's been quite some time, longer than I should admit. But it was great to see these other photos of people that I recognize in different situations and perspectives, because often I've got only the photographs on their grave, which is an Italian tradition, and that's a much more formal photograph than these ones where I see them having fun or sitting at the beach or anything like that. So, it's been really interesting to see. You can do that with an app from Google as well, but there are other things as well. William bought a slide scanner. It just plugs in the computer and it can do negatives as well. So that's interesting to take a look. And lots of that. So a good point there from June. First of every month, I send a copy to a niece and a sister as backups of my photos and trees. That's good. There we go as well. Keeping a copy of your genealogy in a safety deposit box. Very, very helpful. You can get fireproof safes as well, which usually you can secure in your house and go from there. So that's an interesting idea that you can use, and that will maybe keep things safe, but maybe you want it somewhere high up as well so that water doesn't affect it, and there's other things you might want to think about, but certainly there's a different thing here. Gillian says, someone mentioning metadata has just given me the answer to 10 down in this morning's New York Times crossword. Thank you. You get everything here. You get new records, you get conversation, you get the lot, and you also get the answers to the crossword. So that's certainly there. Victoria said it would be useful to have an archivist session. Oh, that's an interesting thing. I'm sure we know a few archivists that would be very, very good to ask. Best materials and products to use to preserve documents, tips to deal with mildew, etc., and more. I'm just going to move the camera because I think I'm slowly drifting off the screen here. I seem to be getting lower and lower. I don't know if it's the course of the evening, but I promise you there's only water in here. Karen made another good point. Metadata is lost when uploaded to certain websites. For example, Facebook. That's true. Make sure you keep the metadata on your version of the file and make sure that the places that you take it to, if there's a different slight format, then you recreate that metadata and you don't strip it off by moving it to a different place. And I see Diane is taking a sneaky break from work to come and join us. Welcome, Diane. I think I saw the question of the week. My great-grandfather was the first breakthrough I got from his service record, and I was hooked ever since. It can be that one thing that you need. It's brilliant, isn't it? And so Valerie was interested from her Mennonite heritage and an interest in antiques and local history. Antiques can be a thing. Yes, Karen, neat gin. It's certainly going that way, isn't it, with so many presentations. But I have to be fresh for tomorrow morning's presentation, or I think Suffolk Family History Society will be very disappointed. So I'm certainly just going to stick to the water this time. Karen also would like an archivist to come join us. I'll see if we can get that arranged. I'm definitely sure there are a great number of archivists I know that would be great. We might even be able to get a panel together that might be able to talk to you a little bit more about metadata, about cataloging, and about life in an archive. So I'll see what we can do, Victoria and Karen, and we'll get to that as well. See lots and lots of other things as well. Nicole says her nan recently brought out her album, so she's been looking at old black and white photographs, trying to figure out who is who. She now has dementia, which makes it harder to ask on certain things. I have the same with my grandmother, and so I feel that, and it's why it's even more important just to, even delicately, just to get some answers and just to hope that then we have that preserved forever. Because all of this is about stories, and stories are what makes this important. And of course, then yes, we have to try and record them as much as possible. Philip was enticed into family stories with connections to a famous playwright, Stanley Houghton, which he's now proven. Well done, Philip. And to the Houghtons of Houghton Tower, which he has not proven yet. Yeah, that'll be it. So then I'm sure that will come. I'm sure. So don't worry about that. I'm sure there's definitely, if you keep researching, then you will certainly find more. And it's great to see all these different things coming in. And I'm still seeing many, many more of you. It's wonderful to see so many of you coming and joining every single week. It is great to share this time. I know things are starting to open up again, but we are here as ever, and we're always enjoying just being with like-minded family historians, because usually we're the only one in the family, and now we've made our own new family. I think that's it. It's really important to have that. And I see, there we go, Ingrid's family is from Suffolk. Her dad's side of the family from there. They live in Nayland near Colchester for many generations. Well, I will do it tomorrow for your ancestors, Ingrid. I'll make sure not to disappoint them. I will definitely be there, and I will certainly not disappoint. I'll give a good presentation before I then move on to Manchester and where I grew up. So I've got other reasons to give a good one for that one. I'll keep going, and we'll see how far I can endure and how many more we can get through. I see Victoria's family tree interest was started with a primary school project. They had to make a scrapbook with family info. Her parents owned a pet shop at the time. They gave her a dog's pedigree form. The ancestors written into it. That is fantastic. That is good. That is really interesting. And I would say a tip there for Rachel, researching Merchant Navy ancestors. There's a huge collection of Merchant Navy records on Findmypast, and I would start with those. If you go to any record collection on Findmypast and just look below the search fields, you find it in that all record sets, and you can see useful links, which can give you a lot more information, and about these records, which will tell you more about the collection and about things you might need to know. Go there and read up, and that will hopefully give you some tips and some help to get further. That's the big recommendation. Whether you're looking at Merchant Navy, the 1921 census, anything else, that's where I'd go, and that's what I'd look for. Excuse me. And that would hopefully get you a little bit further on. See what else we have. We go through. See, we've got 5 minutes left. Doesn't time fly when you're having fun? What a fantastic time we've had. And again, I always enjoy spending time with you. Karen has said maybe we could do a session where people put their top 5 names and where they're from to see if we could connect with anyone searching the same family. That sounds like a good idea, Karen, but I'm scared because I think there are so many cousins now that I'd be worried to end up with another 200 after a session like that. So I think possibly maybe Ellie can run that one so that I don't have to rush to my family tree and add a lot more information. But certainly that's a good idea. We've got Lon asking if Irish history, if the names are in an index circa 1840, will a record exist? As I know records were destroyed in the fire. The thing with Irish history and Irish family history is, yes, some records were lost in the fire you're talking about, but there are many others, and you have to think laterally and use those other records to help telling the story. If you're looking around about 1840, then there's plenty of other records you might be able to look at. And as we go later on, there's something called Griffiths valuation. It's quite useful. There are other things, dog license registers, petty sessions, court registers, lots of detail that you can find. Look at our local and national newspapers, big collection for Ireland, some new ones that came out only this week. Lots and lots to look for, Lon, that hopefully might be able to help you. So certainly don't give up and have a look. Beth is saying, I'm lacking in the new family connections at the moment. This is true. It's been, I would say, about 4 weeks or so before, since someone has found that they're related to me. I think my family may have stopped growing, which is a new thing, and that's certainly something. But I've been so busy with the 1921 census and other things that I haven't had time to work on my own family tree. But when I do, I'm definitely going to take some time off and really enjoy adding those records to my tree and everything else. And let's see what else we've got. I see someone mentioning Scotland, and I just want to make sure what we're saying about William's saying wait until December. I'm assuming you're talking about the 1921 census. Your relatives may have been in Scotland, not England. Otherwise, try names with keywords. That is true. That might be useful if you're looking for relatives on the board or anything like that. So certainly do so. Debbie's asking if I'm on Wikitree. I don't think I am. I'm sure I have some relatives that are on there because I've seen it, but I'm not personally. Maybe that's one of my things to do. I've been certainly, working on putting my family tree everywhere I can just to pick up all those cousins. Although we've been doing this just by word of mouth, which is old-fashioned genealogy to the extreme, and I don't understand how whenever we get into a room with 200 people, I'm related to at least one of them. I'm sure there's some kind of law of averages that we're either completely proving or we're bucking the trend. I'm not sure. Eileen's asked, where are the maps for Griffiths valuation? Findmypast ones are nearer the survey. So they are on those. If you go to the search of Griffiths valuation, I think in the useful links, there's a link that goes there. So that's on that individual search page. And you can also find it in all record sets. If you start typing in Griffiths, there is a section for maps as well. And that's another search. So that is useful as well. Sylvia's saying, I keep avoiding exploring any possible Hayworth connections we might share. That is right. I will get to it. I promise. It's just like Ellie and I, who are probably a generation away from connecting. And that seems remarkably close to home to be related to a colleague, maybe a 5th or 6th cousin, that close, of someone that you never met until you started working here. So that's quite a surprise. Roxanne is saying that the new cousins will start rolling in before long. They certainly will. That is it. And so, yes, we are getting close to the end. I'm seeing a few other things going on. Saying that you had a good hour, Ian, very good. My throat is okay for now, I think. I've just got to, keep on going. I'm using my old-fashioned throat lozenges, and I'm keeping going, and I'm going to keep presenting as long as my throat will survive, and if not, maybe later ones might have a video and some live questions and answers afterwards. We'll see how we go, but we'll all keep fingers crossed. But we are getting close to the end, so it's time to start rounding things up. And I've had a wonderful time with you, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself as well. It's always the highlight of my month to spend some time with other people who share my addiction, and to really enjoy talking about family history, and also to celebrate the great new records that are released on Findmypast, because that's what this is about. It's about all the wonderful new connections we can make, whether it's in person and talking to people who have the same interests, whether it's new cousins that we don't expect that appear out of nowhere. Maybe it's the fact that we've found new records that have meant us to, enabled us to find new people on our family tree. Maybe then we can connect with new distant cousins. All these different things we can do, and we can do because of our shared love of family history. And I wouldn't be able to do it without you as well. And that's really exciting and really lovely. I'm really hopeful that with these new records and with the little tips we share and the little things, that you maybe get a little bit further with your family history. And even if not, that you have a great time talking about things you've found and shared, because we're always as excited to hear it as you are as to find. So come back every week, every Friday, and of course the midweek sessions as well that teach you all kinds of things. We're not going anywhere. And really do share all the things, because it's great to hear, and you would certainly get lots more about family history coming this way. Marion has asked a question: have I found it in my Limerick ancestors? Not yet, but I'm still digging around Limerick City and just hot on the heels of my grandfather. So there'll probably be some kind of update at some point in the future, I'm sure. But I think I need another record to prove it out. Yes, certainly I can even see people talking about their different surnames that they have in different places, and that's great. So yes, maybe you will find some cousins as well. Thank you very much for tuning in once again. As we hit 5 o'clock, it has been a great time, and I certainly can't wait to see you again. And please tell me all the great things you found next time I see you. And whichever new records you use, tell us about those as well. And don't forget to go to the Findmypast forum as well and tell us, because then you can get your messages in and ask your questions before that Friday, and maybe have a new breakthrough to share with all of us. So certainly from myself and from Jesse and from everyone else that isn't here but will be here next week and the week after and everything else, thank you very much for being with us, and we hope to see you again very, very soon indeed. Thanks very much. In bocca al lupo.